Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Tony Greenaway from Latin Resources. In this interview, we discuss the lithium market, which is struggling a little bit right now, which has seen lithium carbonate prices go down as much as 80% over the last year. We also discuss lithium in Brazil and what the competitive advantage for Brazil in terms of lithium production could end up looking like. And we also get into Latin Resources, which is a company that has a substantial lithium deposit in Brazil that they plan to do concentrate with in the near future. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Tony, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure, Steve. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So I'd like to start by talking about what's happening with the lithium market. It's been on quite the roller coaster is one way to put it. And this isn't really anything new for people who have followed lithium over the years. Yeah. Lithium carbonate prices are said to be down around 80% over the last year, give or take. And a lot of the lithium companies that we're talking to are now telling us, they may not say it when we're on air, but then after we go off, they'll say, yeah, really, to be perfectly frank with you, our project is uneconomic at these price levels. So there's clearly a bit of a shakeout happening. What's your read on where we are right now in the lithium market and where we could be heading in the near or medium term?
Yeah. Look, as you say, it has been a real shake-up of the lithium market, and I think prices were so high, crazy high, for quite a while, and I think people sort of forgot that lithium is a commodity, right? and it's going to fluctuate and it's going to cycle. So certainly the prices that they were 18 months ago were just not sustainable, and like all of commodities, we have a correction. I think what we see is you see an overcorrection at the top and then an undercorrection at the bottom of where we're at. So for me, what it boils down to fundamentally is if we're going to look at decarbonising our transport network and go to EVs and electrify our transport system, lithium is a key component of that, as are a number of things. So if you're a believer in that and you think about how we sort of go ahead and achieve that decarbonisation and electrification of that system, you've got to look at what's sustainable for lithium. And it comes back to, well, where's a real price that's sustainable for the chemical manufacturers to be making their money, for the concentrate producers like Latin Resources is hoping to be. Where's that balance in there, right? And whilst I'm a geologist by training, so I don't profess to be able to predict these markets by any stroke. So, but the people that I talk to that do that and have a far better read on it say, well, if you look at about 20,000 as a reasonable standard for hydroxide and equate that back, that sits to around $1,600 for lithium spodumene concentrate pricing. That seems to be a fairly even balance for the guys to be able to make money at the hydroxide side of things, and still reasonable mines and producers of concentrate to be able to make a reasonable profit as well. So that seems to be a reasonable sort of balance. And right now we're sort of sitting a bit below that. I don't see us getting well beyond up to where we were before. But over the next probably 12 to 18 months, I think things are going to stabilise in and around that sort of pricing. And that seems to be reasonable for the longer term for both sides of the story. Does that sort of make sense?
So now you guys are in Brazil, and we'll get into Latin Resources in a minute. But first off, I'd like to hear about what's happening with lithium in Brazil. How many companies are producing it, or what are they primarily producing here? Are we talking about concentrate at this stage? Is anybody doing carbonate or hydroxide? Why would we say that Brazil has some sort of economic advantages when it comes to lithium?
Yeah, so first off, the lithium market in Brazil's, it is established. It's been mined there on a small scale for quite some time, and is now the first, I guess, major mine with Sigma Lithium, which the guys here in Canada would know well, is, I guess, the first mine of scale to come on stream. There are a number of people producing concentrate. There's a couple of people producing small amounts of sulfates from tailings retreatment and things like that from the old concentrate mines. But generally speaking, there's really Sigma is the first major mine to come on stream. Obviously, Latin is hoping to be the next one to come on stream. But in terms of where where lithium market, where the lithium market is going in Brazil, where we are in Minas Gerais. The Governor Zema is very positive about the lithium market and can certainly see the benefits of helping develop that market. And whilst there's no downstream processing, there's no real major sulfate production, there's no hydroxide carbonate production in country at the moment. There have been some sort of offhand discussions, I believe, in looking to build that market. But from a concentrate perspective, which is where Latin sits, the government's Minas Gerais especially very proactive in terms of helping companies looking to come online in terms of fast tracking of approval streams and those sorts of things. So particularly, as I said, in Minas Gerais with Governor Zema, he's very proactive on that. And we have regular conversations with his government groups to assist us where they can. And certainly that was done for Sigma Lithium. It's been done for us and Lithium Ionic, another group. There's a couple of groups in there that are looking to go into concentrate production, and the government's very proactive to help that. So if you look at global production of spodumene concentrate with Sigma at their nameplate, and then Latin coming on board where we want to be, Brazil goes to number 3, I think it is, in terms of spodumene concentrate on a global perspective. So it really is, they can see themselves as being a major player in this market. And I think the government sees the benefit of that for the country and the states as a whole.
So let's get into Latin Resources. This is the first time we've had anybody from Latin Resources on. What's the high level overview for Latin Resources?
So look, we're primarily an exploration company. I have been an exploration company. I'm, as I said, a geologist by training, an exploration geologist specifically. I don't work in mines per se. What we do with Latin, we've had projects in Latin America for a number of years, 15 in fact, and hence the name Latin Resources. We've had copper up in Peru, we've had and still have hard rock lithium assets down in Argentina. And about 2 years ago, I suppose, we started to really focus on our project in Brazil, our Salinas lithium project. And in that time, we've taken it from a greenfields discovery, which it absolutely was. We're located about 100 kilometres north of Sigma. And our geologists were on the ground there back in 2017, mapping away on the back of what Sigma had done, and made a discovery of some outcropping pegmatites up where we are at Salinas. And that really then sort of shut down while COVID was going on, and we didn't get back on ground till the end of 2021. Then started drilling, I guess, meaningfully in 2022. And since then, we've grown that deposit up to now 63 odd million tonnes. We've had our second deposit, a maiden resource on that, so a combined resource base of about 70 million tonnes, and an exploration target of over 80 for the combined project there. So it's really becoming something globally significant when you get to that level. We've got a lot more drilling to do and a lot more discoveries to make, we think, within the corridor that we've identified there. So we can certainly see us going beyond 100 million tonnes of spodumene or of material in our target range there. So yeah, we think the future's pretty good for us, and we're just now marching our way through a feasibility study on our main deposit at Colina. That's due out in the middle of this year. To look at bringing that into production into 2026. So construction next year in 2025, production in 2026, which is, as I was sort of saying before, where we think we should see that stabilisation in and around concentrate pricing.
So my understanding is that most of the hard rock lithium in the world comes from Australia. That's accurate. Yep. Now, you're a geologist. I'm curious. How do you think what we're seeing in Brazil compares to what we saw in Australia?
Well, this is a tough one for me because I'm Australian, obviously, and I'm from Western Australia. I grew up in the mining towns in WA, where most of the lithium is produced. I would say the pegmatites that we're seeing coming out in Brazil, certainly at Sigma, where we are, they're a different beast, and they're different in that they're better, and they're better because they're coarser grained. We generally have spodumene crystals in around sort of 20 to 30 centimetres on average, Whereas in Australia, they're much finer grain. They're bigger systems, and they're overall they're larger, volumes of material, but the spodumene crystals are much smaller. And what that means is recovery is a bit more difficult because you've got to crush it finer and you need to do other things. Whereas the pegmatites in Brazil, being coarser grained, you have to crush it less, which means it's more amenable to more sort of simpler and cheaper processing, like simple DMS and things like that. So our recoveries are better. So from my perspective, whilst the Aussie in me wants to say ours are the best there back in Australia, the reality is I think the ones in Brazil are far superior.
So with Latin Resources, are you guys looking to get to doing, say, a carbonator and a hydroxide down the road, or you guys are going to start out with concentrate and then eventually build a larger facility? What is sort of the long-term vision here?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. And the thing is, with concentrate production and either a hydroxide or even a sulfate production, they're two very, very separate things. So on a simple sort of analogy, I guess the mining side of things, it's simply digging it up, crushing it, simple DMS to produce a concentrate. But then when you go to the sulfate or hydroxide, even more so, this is a very complicated chemical process. So it's a very different set of skills that you need to be able to operate both of those different things. So from Latin's perspective, certainly for the near term, we see ourselves as concentrate producers only. So very simple, cheap, fast mining. You get in there, crush the rock, simple DMS processing, producing a good clean concentrate that will then sell on to someone else that has the expertise to develop that or process that further into the chemicals you need for the batteries. So put simply, I don't see us going down that chemical pathway in the near term.
Okay, so do you guys have any offtakes currently lined up? Is that something you guys are actively pursuing? What's happening there?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question, and we made a conscious decision a while ago in that we weren't going to leap into offtake agreements before we were ready. We wanted to know what our project was and what we knew that we were going to be able to meaningfully produce, and that meant getting the project to the stage of the PEA. We've now done that. We put that out at the end of last year, and we showed that we could, with a very low cost, all-in sustaining costs of around $500 US. For a meaningful life of mine, 11 years with the reduced resource we had at the time, produced a very good concentrate in significant volumes, and then we were then able to say, okay, this is a very robust project. Now let's look at what we can do for offtake. We wanted to be in that position to know what we've got to sell. So we're fully unencumbered at the moment. We have no offtake agreements in place. We have no royalties on hanging over the project at all. And that means from potential offtake partners, it's very attractive because we have a single source of spodumene only lithium. We have a good clean product. It's very low iron. It's from the one mine in the one system. And that's really what those downstream producers want. They want obviously a reliable product at the end of the day, and more importantly, a consistent product, because as I said, those chemical processes are quite complex. So what you don't want to be doing is mixing ores and mixing chemistry when you go down in that. So we've got a very attractive project that can deliver meaningful volumes of clean, reliable concentrate for a sustained period of time. So we took that decision to wait, and in the end of last year, we sort of opened the doors to offtake or potential offtake partners. And we had about, I think, 20 or so, 25 on our list of people that wanted to engage with us and had been banging on the door since we put our first resource out about a year before that. And we then narrowed that down to, I think, 15 or so over Christmas, and we've got submissions from those various people, and we're going through sorting those out, and we're still starting to engage with those various groups at the moment. So obviously for the DFS process, we'll look to have something in place. We're certainly not looking to lock up everything, but we'll certainly have something in place for the DFS, which is due out sort of mid this year. But right now, nothing in place. Not through lack of people trying to, and it's an interesting one. We're talking before about pricing and appetite. With even the downturn in the pricing and potential supposed oversupply, we haven't seen the want to secure product from Kalina at all during that process. There's people still, are really actively looking for those good quality, longer term, continuous supply of concentrate. So, it's good for us, and in due course we'll look to sign something with the right one. But the position that puts us in is we can be selective as to who we go with. We don't have to jump into an agreement that's not right for the company.
Okay, so let's talk about your cap table for a second. At what price was the bulk of the money raised at? And are there any noteworthy investors that we should probably mention?
Yeah, look, I guess we've had a number of people that have been in the company long-term, institutional investment. The last capital raising we did was around the mid-20s, I think, in that sort of order. We did that just before Christmas. We've got $52 million in the bank at the moment. So, we're well funded all the way through to the end of our studies and beyond that. So we're not looking to raise money at the moment. But we do have a number of institutional investments. Waratah Capital came in very early on in the piece down the US. We have BTG, JPG, and a number of other groups sitting in there. So good long-term investors and, people that we're engaging with on a regular basis to keep those guys. But we do have, very large retail investment through the company as well, but a number of groups as well that sit well here in the US, Canada, back in Australia as well.
Okay, last question for you. If we were to sit down and say a year, what and we want to talk about a successful year, what does a successful 2024 look like for Latin Resources?
Look, that's a pretty simple one for me to answer. Basically, our focus for this year is getting the feasibility study done, and then taking the company through to that final investment decision, which is by the end of the year. So, basically, we've got all of our met test work or a bulk met test work underway at the moment. We're busy drilling out the resource to define reserves. And doing all that other peripheral work around that, some sterilisation drilling and geotechnical drilling for the pits, etc. So there's a big drilling program going on at the moment. We'll look to do a resource update probably in the end of the first quarter, and that'll look to then not so much grow the resource, but increase the confidence levels under the JORC classification so that we can then convert that across into reserves. So that's the first part of work that we're doing. We're obviously pushing ahead with all of the other engineering and design work in the background for the DFS, which, as I said, is due out by mid this year. We're doing all of our permitting. We submitted those permits to the government of Minister Rice in December. So we're waiting on those to come through. We're hoping to have those through again by sort of mid this year. So really by the end of the year, we should be fully permitted to go ahead. We'll have a completed definitive feasibility study. We'll be in a position to make a final investment decision to press the button on the project so that in 2025, at the very beginning of, we can kick off construction. So that's where we want to be in this year. So it's all about getting this project build ready, which is where we want to be by the end of the year.
Very well, Tony. Thanks so much for hopping on here today. It's a very interesting story, and hopefully we can have you back on at some point as we see the story roll out, and we see what the future of lithium in Brazil looks like. And I congratulate you guys on all the success you've had so far, and we'll be watching. Thanks for joining us today.
No worries at all. Say thanks for having me. It's great to speak with you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.